So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Thursday, September the 9th, 2021, and their call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And so while we're waiting on Michael to dial in, I'll invite you to go to our website, which is whyagain.org. And you can press on the Start Here button or the scroll down. There's a bullseye in the center of the page. They both take you to the same place where there are all the worksheets. There's Michael's book. There's just lots and lots of information, audios, videos, archives, and just put the tools to work in your life and you'll see a change. Welcome, Michael. Hello, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart. My phone decided it wasn't going to show me the screen to switch off my mute button. But I'm here, and I'm honored, and I'm delighted, and I'm really excited once again about getting to carry forward this conversation, to share these tools that fulfill a promise that was made 2,000 years ago by a genius healer named Yeshua when he said, I have a single purpose, and my purpose is to bring you life and bring it more abundantly. And when we recognize what life is and our definition for life in this particular body of work is that life is the movement or the flowing of love through a cell. Anything that inhibits that is going to lead to misery, suffering, pain, trauma, poverty, conflict, rage, war, all the insanity we see going on in our culture today. When we remove the blocks to that flow of active love through this carbon-based memory system, through this body-mind unit, as we call it, then what happens is people come to the point where instead of disturbance and upset and trauma, even in a circumstance where yesterday they would have had disturbance, upset, or trauma, they get to experience a state of internal connectedness to love, a state of peace, because they understand what life is. And so the whole idea of these tools is that they are life-enhancing. And we're here to enhance your life. And we're delighted that you're here to be part of the conversation. Do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room, sweetie?
No, it is all quiet. So I guess we go straight to the reading.
So I'm going to turn to page, 109 in the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And What You Can Do About It. We are all the way up to chapter, chapter 17 of 24 chapters. So we've got another 6 to go once we complete this one. And we're getting close to the completion of this chapter. And we're talking to this character, Richard, who's this recalcitrant kind of guy who really doesn't want to hear anything I have to say, is in total denial about any responsibility for his life, and every conversation is about how it's all somebody else's 87 different times with 42 different people. Someday you got to go, I'm the one that was there every time. Maybe I'm involved in my life. Maybe it isn't everybody else. And so we're at the stage where we're looking at the fact that this so-called body has a function, and we call its function the mind, but really it's much more like a computer function. If I say don't think about the color of your car, what resonates in your biocomputer, in your carbon-based memory system, but something about the color of your car. So it's a pure resonance function. There's no thinking. There's no actual mind involved in that, but we call that the mind. And what we're asking people to do, and what we're talking to Richard about, is looking inside of himself and recognizing that that's where the forgiveness process has to occur. The core of this work is first century Aramaic forgiveness, where the word forgive has nothing to do with, I'm going to let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. That's a Greek idea of pardoning. Nice thing, but it's not forgiveness. If you do pardoning and you call it forgiveness, then you'll never do the forgiveness work, and misery will tend to continue in your life. If you want to be free of misery, you've got to free your body's mind, your carbon-based memory system. The storage system for that information is your cellular structure. When you store qualities of energy that are of a disintegrative nature within your structure yells and screams, ouch, hurt, this is painful. Why are you doing this to me again? And of course, most everyone goes into total denial at that point and says, I'm not doing it. It's all Bill's fault. It's all Harry's fault. It's all Hortense's fault. And so virtually everybody on the planet lives in a space where they've always got somebody to talk about and they've always got somebody else to blame for what's going on inside themselves. And we're inviting Richard to step inside his own door, inside his own mind, and experience something different. So we've been addressing issues of projection, of sexuality, of what we call the file folder effect, and how when you resonate one set of files in a mind, anything that's been linked to those files in the past is going to tend to move at the same time. If you remember when we started this chapter, the example used of was I asked, or I offered the thought, don't think about, or a different one. What's the Lone Ranger's horse's name? And whenever I ask that question of an audience, I usually get Tonto, Trigger, and Silver. Of course, Silver is the horse's name. But if in the file, so to speak, on someone's mind, Tonto is near the surface, or Trigger is near the surface, then bingo, those brain cells fire, and that becomes the answer to the question. And most people live in that world of whatever's resonating in their mind is the answer to the question and the truth they believe in, no matter how false, no matter how much of a lie it is. If that's what's on the surface of the mind, then our languaging tends to move in the direction of that blame game and it being someone else's fault. So I offered Richard thought. The issues we've been speaking of are in the root of the abuse we do and the abuse we experience in our relationships, our families, our communities, and our world. They are the source of the confusion that leads people to acts of violence, divorce, hatred, vengeance, crime, and war. We must change these dynamics in ourselves if we are to thrive, which is what we are designed to do. Richard said, wait a minute, Michael, you lost me. I don't even know what you're talking about. How do you get to change the dynamics that are so deeply ingrained? Forgiveness. This tool of healing allows us to remove distorted realities from our minds. I'm talking about dealing with all the realities we've accepted that lead to confusion. So many people have bought into the sex is dirty, save it for the one you love, and other insane lines of thinking. That relationship and family seem doomed in our culture. True forgiveness of all painful realities is where our healing lies. If we refuse to do our healing work, we can be easily manipulated and controlled by anyone who knows how to push our buttons and resonate unconsciousness. I'm referring here, Richard, to the skill, the basic skill of removing realities that do not serve us. And at the risk of sounding patronizing, the overwhelming feeling you have is exactly my point. We've resonated all those realities inside of you during our conversation today. Notice it is a beautiful autumn day and we're safe and secure on our deck here in the Ozarks. And character Richard's visiting me in the book at our teaching center called Heartland. We even have clean air to breathe. That was one of the reasons for selecting that particular piece of property, is because that location in southern Missouri is the top 10% clean air in the nation. So we even have clean air to breathe, and the only difference between the beginning of our conversation and now is the realities that have been resonated in your mind. Notice nothing has changed in the world. The only thing different is what has been stirred up in your mind. You are in overwhelm only because of that. That is the beginning. And then realizing that is the beginning of some deep processing, which you will probably continue for months to come. A little overwhelm is to be expected. Okay, I can accept that, but I don't understand what's happening. Why all the confusion? And so we're going to let the conversation sit at that, and tomorrow we'll get into, or pardon me, on Monday we'll get into the confusion aspect of how the mind operates and generates its confusion. But just recognizing here, to me the whole point of these couple of chapters is just to recognize that if I'm in pain, there's something moving in me that is not designed to be moving in me. It's not even designed to be in me. And until I'm willing to use the tools to address and remove those things, I'm going to get to experience it. And if I look back, I'll probably find, if I were to be able to look back one generation of my bloodline, look at mom and dad, I'd probably find the same kinds of confusion and overwhelm in one or both of them. If I were to look at the next generation back, moms and dads, I'd be looking at 4 lives, I'd probably find that same overwhelming confusion. If I went back to the previous generation, 8 lives, I'd find it. The previous 16 lives, 32, 64, 128, 256. Guess what you get to when you get to 32 generations or 30 generations in your bloodline? You've got over 1.6 billion people. And yes, these energetic patterns are passed down through our genetic structure into our physiology, and then what we call the mind of physiology, the body's mind. The body has a mind of its own. When those things are resonating into activity, they come into play. So, here Richard sat down on my deck and, just a few hours ago, started a conversation. He's in a very peaceful place. He's just left a divorce behind, using the geographic cure, and he's in a pretty happy place. But as soon as the conversation starts and things that he's able to normally keep suppressed start to move, he's in pain, he's in turmoil, he's in trauma, because he carries it with him. I'll often, one of my favorite tongue-in-cheek lines is, how many have ever taken the geographic cure? And you find that when you get to the other end, you get off the plane, the person who picks you up at the airport finishes the sentence the person who dropped you off started. How do they know what to say to you? Because energetically, we are always transmitting the results of the energetic patterns that we hold in us. And those literally, on a physics level, become attractive fields that draw people in to do the behaviors that match what's held in our minds. Welcome, young lady. Good to hear your voice.
Thanks. I have a couple of very practical questions. Jeannie, I went onto Silly Company to look for the CBD oil, and there are so many options that I have to ask you what one you recommend.
There's 2 that I use. There's one that is called Relief, and it's for pain. The other one is Sleep.
I like that one. Okay.
Yeah. Good. And you just spray like 8 or 9 sprays in your mouth and hold it for a little bit and then swallow.
Okay. Great.
But we do the Sleep and the Relief, those 2.
Great. Second question. You mentioned a COVID drug that I hadn't heard of the other day. Is that the one that they use for horses but in a human dose?
Michael, you can answer that one better than I can. That's
well, there are a couple of
ivermectin,
things
I think.
That I mentioned. Yeah, there are a couple of things that we've mentioned, and one of them is we have one friend who's a dentist, actually, who was symptomatic and got tested and found that they had COVID. And they went immediately to the hospital and had an infusion, an IV, of monoclonal antibodies. And she said that within 15 minutes of them starting the infusion, she felt better. And within about 36 hours, her symptoms were totally gone, and she was back to full energy, and her energy had been just flagging and dropping into the ground within 12 or 14 hours of becoming symptomatic. So that's one, and the other one that's out there, and there's a lot of research been done around the world. Excuse me, go ahead.
Monoclonal.
Monocloidal. Yeah.
Cloidal.
I believe LOID. I'm not sure. Monoclonal.
Okay.
It's MONOCLONAL.
Yeah, clonal. Monoclonal.
Do that
antibodies.
again, Jeannie.
MONOCLONAL.
Okay, thank you.
Monoclonal.
Sorry, Michael. Didn't want to get that too far gone before you went on to something else.
Sure. And the other one that I talked about is ivermectin, which is used as a dewormer in horses, and especially in a lot of states where there are a lot of farm stores. People have been going into the farm stores and buying horse dosages of ivermectin as though they were deworming their horse and taking it personally, and getting themselves into a lot of trouble with toxicity. Actually, apparently in some cities and states, the number of calls to poison control around this use of ivermectin has been outrageous. And then there is human use ivermectin, which has been used for decades for several different disorders as a drug. And there's quite a bit of research that's saying that the human dosages used properly, used early, is producing some pretty powerful healing results, giving people time for their bodies to recover and heal. And I think I've got some research on that. If you'd like, I'll send you a link.
Sure, that would be great. And also, there was another hydrochloroquine. I heard that.
Hydrochloroquine.
Yeah. Interesting. So, do you know anything about that?
I know one man who was in Vietnam, and is a Vietnam vet, and he's actually a healthcare worker, and he had used the hydrochloroquine. Pardon me, I may be mistaken. Yeah, no, it was hydrochloroquine several times when he was in Vietnam. Parasites and all those sorts of things, and used it successfully. It can create some pretty powerful side effects, but he used it successfully, and so when he got COVID, he insisted that his healthcare provider give him the hydrochloroquine, which they did, and he had been hospitalized, and within 2 days he was out of the hospital and didn't need intubation or any of that. So, in the right hands for someone who knows how to use it, I think there is some, pardon me, I don't think there's some pretty good research that says that both can be useful, again, in the right hands, properly utilized. And there's a lot of misuse. There's some research out there where they used, like ridiculous doses and said, well, this doesn't work because our ridiculous dose, it failed. But there's also some research that in the right hands, both of those substances. Now, one of the problems with them is they're cheap. They're just cheap. You can't charge thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So they're not exactly the average healthcare worker's treatment of choice. But that's my understanding. That's my take on it at this moment.
Okay, thanks. Helpful. Yeah, I thought I just couldn't remember one of those drugs. It was the ivermectin that you had mentioned that I didn't write down. Okay.
Right.
Great.
So what else is exciting in your world?
Well, I have a sort of a weird question. Everything's exciting in the world. It's good. I have a friend who she's a healer and a psychotherapist and so forth, and I've sometimes talked about her because she often says things that I don't find helpful, one of them being that she'll tell me that I have entities around me that are not helpful, or that alien forces from other planets are attacking me, or I have demons and so forth. And I think, well, I don't know what to do with that, and I certainly don't want to think that I have those, so I just distance myself from that. But she also confers with a man she calls a spirit man who is no longer in the body, who she calls grandfather, who is a shaman. And I've been thinking about my middle grandson, my daughter's middle boy, who is extremely talented actor, singer, dancer. Great when he's on the stage and great when he is in his sort of, it's like two personalities. When he is not in his outgoing, sociable personality, it's almost as if he's unconscious. He'll do things that are that appear to be self-centered, but I don't think it's self-centered. I don't think he's aware. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this on the radio show. I have an example of this. I was helping him pack his car. His car was across a small lawn that you could walk around, and we had just seeded the lawn. So I asked him, would you kindly go around the lawn? I don't want anybody tromping on those little blades of grass. He ignored me. He kept taking his boxes and walking tromp, tromp, tromp in his boots right across the lawn. And after saying what I should have done is moved his car, didn't even occur to me. What I should have said, I kept saying, Jacob, please don't walk on the lawn. Jonathan and Charlie and I spent a long time seeding that lawn. He ignored me, and he must have walked across it 10 times. Then we were finished packing, and I was just astounded. One of the reasons I didn't say anything to him is because I couldn't believe what he was doing. I lost my brain. Well, a few days later, I drove 2.5 hours with the rest of his stuff because not everything fit in the car by a long shot. I drove 2.5 hours toward Pittsburgh and met him halfway from Pittsburgh to transfer all the rest of his stuff into his car. And I said, Jacob, I have to say something. I said, I just felt so disrespected when you kept walking across the lawn. I thought about responsible communication. How do I say this? What was going on? And he said, oh, I didn't mean to disrespect you. I was hyper-focused. And I thought, what kind of an answer is that? I still don't know what to do with that, except to think that and this is where the shaman comes in. My friend told me that Jacob is actually, his soul is split apart from himself. Now, Michael, I don't even know what to do with stuff like this, but if there's any help from him, for him on this level, then I want to help. I want to, my friend said, if you want to hire me, she charges for these things, she'll meditate on him and knit his souls back together. Michael, I don't know what to do with this stuff. So I'd love to hear your take.
Well, my first thought would be, that you might want to pick up the lesson of, especially if there's someone who's hyper-focused and has difficulty shifting their minds, you might want to look at how you give instructions out of resistance. And as you speak about, don't walk across the lawn, for a mind that's singularly focused or hyper-focused, as he refers to it as, walking across the lawn is the only option in that conversation. When you offer a clear directive, here's what I want you to do, you might find that there's a better ability to hear and a more cooperative response. The world teaches us about what we don't want. And I know, like, for instance, with our granddaughter, there are things that, like every kid does, that they don't have the brain cells for how our culture works or what's acceptable and what's not. And I know that I have to constantly be monitoring my own mind and my own language so that when one of those things occurs, I can talk to her about what we do in this culture, what our way of doing things is rather than that. And I find that as I do that, I get more and more cooperation for, of course, I want to do what our culture does. So that might be one thought. And the other one, I don't know what to do with all of that, soul splitting and what have you. The whole demon thing, the, monsters and all of that appear in the mind, I would offer that what that is our minds habitually generate perceptual constructs in accord with what our beliefs are. So if somebody told us that, if we're doing something bad, there's an evil influence and there's a demon controlling us, then whatever the mind energy is in the mind around that behavior, the mind's going to generate a demon. It's going to generate an image and personalize that mind energy. But when we pierce that veil, all those images that come to the mind and look so very real, all of those constructs are nothing but the personalizing and projection of the mind energy into, somebody else to blame, whether it's a demon or the devil or, the devil made me do it, et cetera, et cetera. For me, the quickest route is building the brain cells to become aware of the mind energy behind what my mind stirs up as a perceptual construct that I call a demon, rather than getting lost in demonology and what powers does this demon have and how can it control me and what can is to start to look at the underlying mind energy and clean it up. And, if you've exhausted every other resource, if it's in your financial realm, give this woman a shot and see what she comes up with. She might just happen to be able to tap into an energy that will help open this young man's mind. Does that make sense?
I almost don't know how to. Yes, it does make sense. Can you? I guess I want to be open, but I don't want to be gullible. So your idea of taking her up on it, I mean, she's trying to make a living and so forth and so on, and see if it helps. But I have two thoughts. One thought is, if she removes these demons or reknits together the soul, the fractured soul of this grandson, is he not, he's not doing his own work. He's just having it done to him. And I've always thought that we need to do the work.
I was going to ask the same question.
Thank you, Jeannie. Okay.
Definitely, ultimately, having one do the work that needs to be done is what's going to, doing one's work is skill building. It builds those other levels of strength and power that, just walking in. I remember a course I did, way back 30 years ago, and in the course they were like, and now we can heal everybody, and so everybody tomorrow bring in a name of somebody that's sick, and then we'll turn it over to the group, and the group will heal them. It's like, that's when I left the course. Thank you very much. I don't have any business in somebody else's field, moving things around. I don't know. Maybe they're right on. It may look traumatic to us, but maybe they're right on the cusp of the moment of their lives where they're going to make their opening and do their healing. And I'm going to walk in and steal it from them. Thank you very much. I'll pass. So there's certainly that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. Well, and you helped me realize that if this woman did a healing on Jacob to the point where something moved, no matter how, then perhaps he would become capable of doing his own work. Whereas now, I mean, this woman, when I told her about Jacob and what he had done, she said that's a kind of narcissism. And I thought, I don't want to put that word on it. It is a kind of self-reference. He had no reference outside of himself. I was hyper-focused, therefore I did that. The fact that he could even say that means that he was aware that he was ignoring me. or hyper-focused. He might have felt, oh, she's asking me to do something that's impossible. But there was no acknowledgement on his part afterward when I was talking to him that he bore any responsibility or felt any regret about what he had done. He just excused himself, which is something that narcissists do. And this same boy has asked me, because his father is very narcissistic, and I know it's bad to give labels, but there it is. He said, do you think I'm a narcissist? And I said, right off the top of my head, I have no sense that you're a narcissist. I think you've been hurt by one. You may even be copying the behavior of one. But I don't think that's you, Jacob. And I'm glad I said that to him, and I'm not going to take that back and say, oh, now you're acting like a narcissist. But I am totally bamboozled by the fact that there was no regret, no acknowledgement, no question about, geez, I'm sorry about the lawn, how's it doing, or anything like that. He was entirely inside his own self.
You know how you've talked about the therapist with the grandson that's OCD, and the therapist says you just don't participate. Like, that's one of the basic instructions. That far off, you simply don't allow it. You know, you that would be the place for accountability. And the sooner he's held accountable, the sooner there's going to be the possibility of a shift. And accountability in that space might look like, here, I'm going to walk behind you, and we're going to walk the path that you're going to use to take these boxes to your car, and this is what you're going to do. And or I'm going to walk you out to the car, and you're going to put the keys in the ignition, and you're going to move the car to the end of the pathway. I'm going to protect my lawn. If you choose to violate that protection, then I'm going to do something about it. So probably nobody in his life has ever held him accountable for these behaviors, so they go on with no idea that there's anything off base because he's gotten away with it all his life. So that might be the space for stepping forward and taking a directive role where his direction is so far off base.
That's so weird, because in his life, if he did anything 1 degree to the left or 1 degree to the right of what his father wanted him to do, he was punished to the point where he became a recluse, even as a little boy. He lived in his room, period. His whole life was in his bedroom. That's how he coped. Meanwhile, his older brother, Luke, put up his dukes and fought with his dad to the point where Lukey was very badly hurt over and over again. One boy chose one way, one boy chose the other way. So I don't understand how that fits, except that suddenly Jacob was acting just like his dad, maybe, and ignoring everybody and putting himself first. I don't know, Michael, I'm just puzzling over the whole thing.
Well, for me at this point, the difference between what I just suggested and what happened to him all his life is, all his life, nobody ever demonstrated to him what they wanted done. According to what you just said, what they simply did was pull out the punishment rag and figured that would be enough. My input is that you interrupt the process of his ill-conceived behavior and you redirect it. So you're redirecting behavior consciously, purposely, out of love, and supporting him in coming out of that shell, or, you know, the excuse he uses. And I think that's, you know, to some degree, it sounds like it's just another form of denial, another way of not being responsible. But in the moment, not punishing him, but insisting on responsibility.
That's good.
For me, that would be the difference.
Yeah, well, that's good. And I know his mother does that now that the mother is by herself. She has done her very best to guide and coax and assist and redirect Jacob without any punishment because punishment was just done all the time. And his reaction is, I'm so sick of these persnickety controlling people in my life, these over-anxious people who are demanding too much of me. Why do you care about a neat house? I mean, so this is a big challenge. So, yeah, to be the right kind of loving person. Big assignment.
Yeah, and to stand up for your rights. He's talking about his rights. To stand, I have a right to take care of this lawn that I put so much time and energy into, and you're a threat to it, and I'm just not going to allow it. That's all. You're just not going to do it.
Well, Dr. Tim laughed. He said, you moved that car into the shade. It was a blistering day, and we were loading the car in the sun. And I said, let's move the car to the shade. But in order to move it to the shade, we had to go around a little lawn to get to the car. Dr. Tim said, well, you moved the car. Why didn't you just move it again? So it never occurred to me, Michael, to just move the car. Of course, that doesn't do anything for the discipline thing that you're talking about or the consciousness element of what you're talking about, but it would have gotten rid of the problem. Yeah.
Well, you'll remember in the intensive we covered responsibility communication. And in the responsibility communication rules, the last step is problem solving. The non-being mind, the first step it wants to do is solve the problem. And what I would offer is, you've probably got a young man who never in his life had anyone who taught him how to solve a problem or directed him in a way that helped him solve a problem. It sounds like, well, what we do, if you step out of line, and we're not going to bother explaining to you what in line means, just if you step out of line, we're going to punish you. And there's no healing possible in that. What I'm talking about is a healing accountability done from a space of connectedness and love. And it sounds like that's what that young man needs, is someone who can hold him accountable lovingly, and instead of punishing him, support him in doing behaviors that are in harmony. It's like kind of with Arya, as the 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. Well, sweetie, I understand that that's what you want to do right now, but in this, she's got a different set of rules in her parents' household compared to our household. And sometimes in her parents' household, she's allowed to throw a tantrum and, there's upset and all that stuff that goes on. But I remember one day we're getting ready to go outside, and she decided she wanted a certain way. And tantrum started, and I just said, sweetie, we cherish you. And, in this house, we just don't do tantrums. We cooperate with each other. We care for each other, and we cooperate. And, I mean, literally mid teardrop and snot out of nose starting of tantrum, it stopped, and she said, okay. And we walked out the door happily, and, But some people don't have the brain cells for what the alternative is. What would the average person do with that touch? Don't you dare do that sort of dare. If you do that, because they've never resolved the tantrum inside themselves.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. That's helpful, Michael. Tim and I are this young man has just turned 21. And when Lucy turned 21, he was in line to receive an inheritance from Tim's mother. She had set up these trusts or something. When Luke turned 21, he wanted his trust money. The trust money's gone. He spent it on pot, drink, and he basically flunked out of 2 semesters of school. And he, thank goodness, was helping pay with some of that trust money, helping pay for his schooling. So he even squandered his own money on that. And now he's got a job. He says he likes the job. He's passing his courses, but he's lost his money. So when we talk to Jacob, who has a similar inheritance coming to him, Tim Bingham said to him, how about look at what happened with Luke? Now I know you're a very different person, and it's up to you. You choose whether you want to have this money now or whether we should keep it until age 25. Without batting an eye, Jacob said, "Oh, you better keep it. Why don't you keep it?" So Tim said, "Here, I'll make you a deal. We've been giving him an allowance, and we're going to continue, I think, but this is where the question comes. We know he's smoking pot, or not smoking, vaping it or something. He has a medical marijuana card, and he probably overindulges, but he's more conscientious. He doesn't want to hurt his voice, for instance, and he doesn't want to hurt his brain, but he has anxiety, which is eased by taking this. When he was living with us, he left his room in a terrible mess, and then when he left, I cleaned up all the garbage, and it included a lot of vials of God knows what it was, lots of vape remaining things, and nicotine gum. So I knew he was doing some things to medicate himself. So Tim said, "Look, we're going to give you a small chunk of that money to start you off, but that will be your money, and for the time being, for your own use, for your equipment, whatever you want, maybe food, whatever you want to spend it on, but you are now going to be responsible for this small amount of money." It's not small, but $10,000. He said, "I'm going to let you handle this $10,000. And then Tim and I talked about, well, maybe we should stop his allowance. And then I thought maybe that would feel like a punishment. So we're continuing an allowance, knowing that we're probably enabling him. And once again, we're just looking at what's going on and not knowing what to do, not knowing what to do.
Well, perhaps languaging that he's going to get this money amortized over a certain period, and it's going to be in the place of his allowance. So it's not taking his allowance away, but he's getting this as a way of receiving his allowance and seeing how responsible he's going to be, And, if it's $10,000, here you handed it. So for 2 years, that's to take the place of your allowance. And in 2 years, if you need it, your allowance will restart. But right now, here's the $10,000. Let's see how you handle it.
That's a great idea. It really is a great idea.
So it's not taking it away. He's stepping into responsibility, and it opens a bigger space for him to learn to manage himself and manage his life. And of course, handing him the tools so that self-medication isn't a requirement for him would be pretty awesome. And
say that again, Michael.
The level
did you just say?
I say the preferred method for me of helping him to manage his life would be to hand him some tools to really start to explain. There's no safe level of use of nicotine or caffeine or pot. The half-life of pot is somewhere between 8 days and 8 months. I don't know that anybody knows exactly what that half-life is, which means that the deadening effect on brain cells is there for at least 8 days after it's imbibed. You are damaging your brain, period. That's just the way it is. So instead of damaging yourself in order to anesthetize, explain the difference between an anesthetic and healing, are you interested in healing? Then if you're interested in healing, there's a way to do that so that the anesthetic use is just not required. You can free yourself from that.
Yeah, that's ideal. That would be ideal. I don't know if he'd be open to that, but certainly we could put it to him. Yeah.
I don't know if you were listening to yesterday's show, but we were talking about the codependence workshop as a self-study that's now set up. And very likely, if he's doing college, I don't know what all he's studying, but he could very likely get credit for doing some of that work. So it would benefit his resume and his college studies, and he'd be acquiring some skills for working through those things. Might be something to put forward to him. Here's something you can likely get college credit for, and it's going to give you relief from that stress and strain that you hold that keeps you on the treadmill of drugs.
Mm.
No, I think a little. Sure, please, Jeannie, do. But one more thought. Just, you might make a list of everything you cleaned up in his room, like the caffeinated gum, et cetera, or the nicotine gum, and document for him. These are things ultimately that, son, are going to destroy your body. It's just the way it is. So if you'd like to recoup from that, we have some tools. And by the way, it could become a college credit, and it's to be self-study, and I'd be there, happy to help you with the study. And, you've got all the links. You can help him and work with it, and who knows? He might be ready for that. Jeannie, you got a thought?
That would be so exciting.
I was just going to say, the way that if you check just about any college has what prior life experiences or prior life assessment. And what you do, you have to have a certificate that you completed whatever program it is. But like I was even able, besides the Why Again and the Healing Through Relationships and all that, and I had to write up a description of what each one covered and how it was comparative to a college course. And then I had to look in their college catalog, and pick out one that, okay, this is on communication, and they have a communication course, so this is comparative to that. And I had to submit my explanation as well as my certificate of completion, and then they determined how many credits that it was worth. Some of the courses they said was worth 2 or 3 credits, some was worth 5 credits, and it depended on how many hours I had put into it. But it's called prior life assessment. They even do that for if you've taken, like at the, high school, you took a computer course at night or something like that, then it's comparative to a computer course that they give at the college, and they get credit for it, that they've already taken it. And so they can knock out a whole lot of their electives by doing that.
That is really
and
interesting.
heal at the same time.
Right.
So, prior life, I'm writing it down now. Prior
life assessment, PLA. That's usually what they call it. And they look at, you look at anything that you have taken a course on and gotten a credit for. I mean, like I even took sign language years ago at my church, and I submitted it and got credit for a foreign language.
Woo! That's fabulous.
So anything that you have taken, done in your life, and you have to have a certificate showing that you completed it. And but so all of the courses, all of the Why Again intensives that we have done, I got credits for them.
And we would certainly support you in him getting certificates if that's the direction he chose to go.
Wow, that's a great idea. Is the schedule for how does the codependence arrangement work now? You're not running it. People can just pay for it and watch the videos?
It's a self-study.
Yeah.
There are right now 89 hours of video. We're going to do one more program one of these days, so that it's around 90 hours, an even 90 hours of course material, and the worksheets and the food program for Heartland. All of that's included in it, and the cost of it's $600. And then we have not at this point set up a mechanism for someone showing to us that they've completed it, but if he wants to do it, I'd be happy to work with it and set something up so that we have verification, and then we offer him certification of completion.
The food thing would be a complete turnoff for him, so that's not required. That part of it is offered, but it's not required,
it's
right?
There, right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's just part of the package.
Okay. All right. Well, the next time he visits, I'm not in touch with him. He is not a communicator, and he's busy and so forth. But if and when he comes to stay with us, if we get a nice opening, a nice, gentle, good connection, I could put this to him, and I know he's interested in psychology. He even mentioned that he might major in psychology. But I have to say, Michael, he also has a very dark, negative feeling about his own life. If I said, well, this would make you, so you could live till 65 or 75 or 85 or 95, he'd say, why would I want to do that? He makes comments like that, which show me that he's really, I don't know what it is, depressed or down on himself, or I don't know, just being dramatic. I don't know what it means. Anyway, there's that factor in there, too, of why should I bother? I'm not worth it. I'm just trying to get through life. Sort of.
Just another reality in the mind.
Yeah.
So I'm sending you a link to a 1 minute, I think it's an hour and 4 minutes. Why is this happening to me again? Synopsis. And I just texted it to you. I would suggest you forward that link to him. It's a pretty compact package. Take an hour and listen. And it just lays the whole thing out in a way that anyone with an interest, I would think, in psychology and any sort of inclination to healing themselves would go, well, this makes sense. I'm up for it. So maybe give that a listen. It's actually the second session in the Codependence Intensive, but I just sent you a link to the video. So it stands alone. Jeannie's edited it out, and that might be something to send to him to start a conversation.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful ideas.
Yeah.
Well, we're all in this together, and it's time for healing on the planet. So I'm delighted that you've opened the conversation, because I'm sure that there are lots of people listening who have that recalcitrant person in their lives, or they are that recalcitrant person, and this conversation helps to build the brain cells for, I could inspire something different, or I could do something different. And, when the mind can produce a construct of possibility, that changes everything. And for most people, the mountains they don't climb look like they're impossible.
Yeah,
and
so true.
Building the brain cells for a different construct has the potential to change everything, and that's what we're here to do, is to change everything. As we nurture the muscles in our backs and our arms and our legs after having shoveled 4,000 pounds of compost into our new garden spaces.
I was thinking about you doing
that was fun. We actually, it was a good workout.
You pulled a fast one on Jeannie. You pulled a fast one on Jeannie. She was hosting all by herself.
Well, I was there listening. That's what I did. I got about a third of it done, or a quarter of it done, and then we took it up to we've got a new garden space that's about 15 by 15, and it now has about a foot of compost in it, and we both shoveled that one, and lamented our muscular excursion. And it was good exercise. It was a good workout, and I'm actually looking out the window at it right now, and it's just absolutely beautiful. This dark black soil that's on top of this clay ground that we've got here, and we're actually, tomorrow we'll be sowing some seeds in it for a first cover crop to get it really rocking and moving.
Nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
Good for you. Have to hand it to you. Shoveling is not easy.
Well, it definitely was a workout. It's a different set of muscles than either of us usually use, especially when you pick the shovel up and turn it. And then we went out and got 100, I don't know, I guess these rocks are probably, 20 pounds each, Jeannie? But 100 of these cast rocks to go around the edge of it to create a perimeter. So that was the next one. So we got a finger workout and back workout, hauling those and putting them in place. So we've been busy, and this afternoon we're going to treat ourselves to a movie and relax and take it easy.
What movie?
There's one, I don't remember what the title of it was. I just saw it was something like Introducing Me to the Father. It's a special one-time thing that's being shown at and it's about relationships with fathers. So I'll let you know tomorrow what it was. Show Me the Father. And apparently it's about a young man who with challenges with dad, and yeah, we'll do it.
Good. Maybe Tim Bingham ought to watch that.
There you go. Any movement on your thinking? Oh, we're down to the last minute, so I guess I'll let go of that question. And the next time we talk. In the meantime, everybody? No? Okay. Well, we'll hold the space. Blessings.
Thanks.